Hi there, welcome back to Personality Profile on Joy News with me, Emefa. So I am excited. Why? Because for this particular personality, I am curious and I want to know him for myself. And I like to think you want to know him even better than when he's not demanding for accountability or when he's not in the street protesting against something that he thinks is not right, or maybe you also think it's not right. And your guest is good as my Oliver Barker-Vormawor. Thank you for joining us.
I appreciate you dragging me along into this conversation.
I had to, and I'm glad you're letting them know that I literally had to drag you along. Yeah. So how is your PhD coming along? Coming well?
Slower than I thought it would, or that I wanted it to. Because now, I used to say that I was doing it part-time now, but now it's quarter-time.
Really?
But it's a lot of things as well. One, because I'm working with deep historical material, a lot of which are not allowed. You can't even borrow it from the library. You have to work in some part of the University of Cambridge's library and work there and access the materials there. So my inability to travel because the government has my passport means that it's really difficult to advance at a space which I want.
But the school allows you to pick up at some point.
No, the school has been great. It's been fantastic. The thinking has always been that when whatever this is over and you're ready, you can always come. Which they've made great accommodations for me that I'm pleased by.
That's nice, you know.
But I think for me, and this is something I had to make peace with very quickly. The understanding is that I wasn't waiting on my PhD to live life. That my experiences and things I was doing, that was life being lived. The various things that were happening to me and I was seeing, the lenses through which I was seeing Ghana anew, were actually life, right? It wasn't like after school then you've lived life. It's put me at ease.
Let's bring you back home to Ghana. How have you been since after your recent, shall I call it an escapade in cells and all?
The escapade is a strange word.
Is it?
No, I mean, you know, that I assume I think the reason why I'm struggling for words. I'm trying to find the appropriate words here.
Now I'm actually struggling for words as well.
No, because I want to say something. I think that some of the incidents that happened in the last 2 days were particularly traumatizing. That I needed to make sense of it for myself, right? So the idea, I mean, I was used to, I guess, police brutality and things like that. But the idea that because I was leading a hunger strike within the cells with inmates, it gave some license to brutalize. I had to, it took me a while, even after, to make sense of what had happened in the last 2 days, you know.
Every time you face any form of brutality, how do your parents take it?
I've always talked about, and I've talked about this, that my parents called me Mause, right? Which means that the Lord has listened. Suggestion, have heard your prayers, right? So in some regard, I'm an answer to a prayer. And if I'm an answer to a prayer, they must have prayed a specific kind of prayer for me to turn out. So I'm convinced that this is what they prayed for. And then they must make peace whatever they prayed and got answered. But the truth is that every activist lives the activism with their families and close ones. Every time you're incarcerated with them. I saw my mother go up and down, and no matter how many times I told her, I don't want you to come here, she would still show up. Because she said it was way more difficult to be in a part than coming to see me. So I understand that. And one of the things that made me, I don't know if I would ever make peace with that, because there's an element of selfishness to live authentically with one's beliefs and value systems.
Whose part?
On my part.
On your part, right?
Yes, there's an amount of selfishness to be able to say that I believe something so strongly that I'm willing to give of myself for. And then other people get dragged along, right?
Do you struggle to let people understand what it is that you feel and what it is that you're living for, which we'll get to at some point?
The truth is, it's not a question of not understanding. Even Christ on the cross said, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, that if it is your will, let this moment pass me by. That we know what ought to be done, but it's not any less difficult, right? So I think that I always say that everybody wants Ghana to be better, but rather it's not their child. who get sacrificed in the process. So I understand that they wish it wasn't me having to bear this cross, and I wish it wasn't the one having to bear this cross as well, to be in this situation. But I don't know how to live life any other.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And this is how you intend to live? The how, I'll leave you to define.
You know what? I've always said that the most difficult part for me, or the most difficult time I've ever had in this country in all this activism, was when the military descended onto the people in Ashaiman and brutalized the entire community. And just the absence of voice. All these people that claim to hate coups just disappeared, right? We couldn't find the strength of their voice to condemn. That so much, a big section of the Ghanaian population were like, yeah, Ashaiman is bad, it serves them right. And I just couldn't comprehend what kind of people would tolerate and allow this to happen. It's the closest that I felt like it's not worth it. But you know how I dealt with it? I woke up, mobilized young people, go into those communities and take people's down stories to be able to document what happened, short videos of that. I had to do something about it to set the world right for me, that there are people that want to do something about it.
Okay.
So believe me, I've tried to give up.
Let's get to how you got to this point in your life. Where were you born?
I was born at Kolebu. You know, the funny thing is, I say this with a laughter, because I know so many people who were not born at Kolebu that eventually got birth certificates that said they were born at Kolebu. I know someone who was born in Nigeria that has the birth certificate that says Kolebu.
Actually, that's a very good answer to the question where. Maybe I should say, which town in Ghana were you born if you're born in Ghana?
So I mean, I saw my birth certificate and it's like, oh, one of those old Kolebu records. Yes. Because my mother, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, so I think there's a community of Ewes that moved to Accra in the early years of independence, that lived in Kaprais, Alajua, Belimpe, and speak fluent Gang, right? They were those original ones whose parents worked in the civil service. And so my mother is from that generation of Ewes that moved from the Volta region into Greater Accra. And my grandmother used to sell in the markets in Makula.
What was she selling?
And she sold all kinds of things. She would sell clothes, she would sell food. She was like a serial businesswoman, you know. And yeah, my father didn't though. My father grew up in Amedeka, which is a small town near Akuse.
Oh.
So his parents had moved.
Do you know the meaning of America?
Yes, one person, one man. I know very much. That one man can change the world, I guess, in the full meaning of it.
We should be talking to your father
very much.
Yeah,
but my grandparents grew up, you know, very close to the Volta River. They were one of those communities that were displaced by the Volta Dam when the Akosomo Dam was constructed. My dad used to, you know, my dad became, and I'm jumping ahead of myself here, but I'll come back to it. When the PNDC said they wanted to test democracy before we transition into full democracy, yeah. And so they rolled out this assembly. That's when the assembly started in the 88. And my father was the first assemblyman elected from America there. And I have a picture of him where he's holding me up and I'm in camouflage, where he's voting. And
when you were in camouflage?
Yes, I was a little boy, 2 years old. I was wearing a camouflage.
Did you ever ask a question of why you were dressed in that? You should.
I never did. But it was the military. I'm sure there was a lot of fun boiling and fun girling about military in those days.
How many siblings do you have? Okay, maybe finish that part.
Yeah, and later on I saw some of my dad's letters because he fought for the town to be electrified. And despite being a community that lost everything because everything was inundated, they had to be moved when the dam was constructed. America lived an existence for a long time. They were not connected to electricity. I'm telling you can see the pond down from where I live. And he wrote a letter that I remember says, we are like the proverbial fish that live in water but cannot drink of its water. That we gave our lives away for Ghana to be electrified, but yet we did not have electricity. So it was in my lifetime I saw electricity America being electrified. You know, so my grandparents moved there and lived there, and he used to his mother. He was very close to his mother. His mother used to brew akwateshi and sell. So he used to take it to Accra, to Makola, to come and say, and that's how he met my mother. See, I told you I'll bring it back around, and that's how they met. And then I was conceived and born in Kolebu. Okay,
because then I was going to ask, apart from he being an assemblyman, did he have a particular profession? But
yeah, so he was a land valuation. He worked for the Ghana Land Valuation Board till he retired.
Okay,
yes.
I know that you've mentioned that you probably are an answer to their prayer, But today, what does he think of you? What does he like you for? A lawyer, an expert in governance, policy law, or an activist? Which
He
one?
absolutely hates me as an activist. I can tell you that much. I think, you know, when I was away working at the UN, and things like that, things that traditionally Ghanaians would be happy about, right? Like you're making money, things like that. Those are the values, markers of prosperity and success, right? But no, not when you're giving, half my practice is doing pro bono work.
Yeah.
That I'm advocating for things, that I'm not going to live in mansions. I've given up the dream of that my life in service of others. It seems like, how do you call it? Selling your colored TV for a black and white.
I agree, which my father did easily for some reason. Okay.
Yeah, but I think that there's nothing, I think I have never been happier, you know? And I've always said, like, there's a part of my life, and that's one of the things people find difficult to be able to reconcile about me. There was a part of my life that this guy has stellar educational attributes, he's worked in all these fancy places. But I feel like I was living in a way in which society, the markers of what's successful, to be successful in society are good grades, top schools, what kind of jobs, that we've never even have a conversation about living for values and principles. That getting into this space, I feel like my soul is restful. And I can't put a price on that.
It's just an amazing. Somebody puts others to restlessness to be restful. That's very curious.
Yes, it is. It is. To believe that we deserve a life of dignity and to be willing to give oneself for that. I think there's nothing
Did you set
better.
out to become a lawyer, or it happened to you?
You know what's crazy though? Yes, I did.
At what age?
Yes, I did. So I must have been around 10 or 11. You know what's funny? Because I always used to say when I was younger, anytime they would ask people what they wanted to do, I said I wanted to be president. And I didn't say it facetiously. Like I said it meaning it to be. Because I was somebody who was introduced to politics by my dad very early on. I was very in tune with the politics of the time. And but I never had a sense of what it meant professionally to get there. Right? I didn't think that there was a career to be developed to arrive there. You know what I mean? And when I was younger, my dad didn't go to church a lot. But he was the only person I've seen wake up consistently at 5 a.m. to read the Bible and pray.
Why not? How?
No, he said he was Catholic, but I've never seen him set foot in a Catholic church. But he used to go to prayer, all these prayer camps, prayer retreats, quite a lot. And he used to take me there all the time with him. So I did a lot of fasting and prayers, all courtesy of my dad.
And so would you say that it's some sort of a confirmation to you at the time that you were 10 that you wanted to be president?
No. So the presidency came from my exposure to politics. But how I became a lawyer, so in one of these camps in the Krupon Hills, Manfi, would fast 6 to 6, right? And for some reason, one of the days I said, I wanted to know what I become when I grow up. You know, I'm not awfully religious now, right? And I don't think I was at the time.
Okay.
But it was a practice my dad introduced me to go somewhere and pray, and I did that. And I remember vividly. So I went to bed, I prayed that prayer, went to bed, and I dreamed of running out of the Supreme Court. Said I had won a case. Tell you what, I had never at my age then seen what the Supreme Court looks like. What it is now is exactly how I dreamed it.
Which I was going to ask, did it look exactly
as that?
Exactly
what it looked like. So there's a hand of divine providence, I think.
Okay. Are we still nursing the idea of becoming president?
Well, I know that I've been called to be a lawyer. That I have become.
What year were you called into to the bar?
2015, I think.
Okay.
So yeah.
Have you enjoyed it so far? You personally, which one have you been enjoying?
Funny though? Yes. Since I became a lawyer, the first time I went to court is when I was taken there by the police. The Ghanaian court, I must say, because I did work in international.
So which one of the cases?
You know, actually, this was the first Occupy when we wanted to fix the country protest.
Right.
They had taken us to court, and I went, and that was the very first time.
Interesting. And then subsequently, you've had to pursue
I
cases
mean, now,
by yourself.
I mean, I'm the government's favorite pet to prosecute or to sue.
What about
But
other
now
people's
I do a
cases?
lot of I mean I do a lot of work on so many issues involved in a lot of environmental issues, constitutional issues, corporate, commercial, a lot of things.
Are you married?
I have a partner. I have a partner who I love dearly.
Okay,
Yes.
do you have kids?
I have a little boy.
Oh.
Yes, I have a little boy who, incidentally, we found out we were pregnant when I'd been arrested for treason. And we had to keep it quiet because I didn't want it to become part of the news
Right.
cycle. So, yeah, we kept it away from family.
What does partner
quality.
even mean? Is it different from are you married? Or somebody you
Because
have an agreement with?
marriage is a very patriarchal institution
Okay.
that we define ourselves, that we are defined by a partnership.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How does she feel about all these activism and all?
It gives her stress, I must tell you.
Give her.
She doesn't check her Twitter feed. She doesn't. She's off. I've managed to keep a lot of my family members off social media because
Okay.
they can't take it.
Okay.
To see the things that people are saying, to the fear and the anxiety of it. But one of the things I cherish most is that we've reached an understanding where we kind of believe that we may not agree with somebody, but if they're living their life's purpose, you must provide support. And she's been a wonderful partner in that regard. She's been very supportive, even as much. She also wishes, let this cup pass me by. She understands that.
How
that
old is the
support,
little boy?
You know, when that was, I was arrested in 2012 for treason. He was born in September 11th of that same year. So
Okay.
a little.
So does he understand a few of the things going on around
Absolutely not.
He doesn't,
Yeah,
huh?
absolutely not. I mean, my partner works in the UN, and for a long time, even as I was going and coming, it was with me. You know, so most people don't know that I was going out for protests or anything, and I had a little less than a 1-year-old at home that I'll go
my
back
goodness.
home to, and it was just the two of us living together.
Wow.
You know, so when I have to go out, I send him to his grandparents and come back, even after work, and pick him up. Now he's moved, but I think having him and holding him gave meaning to my activism, because it wasn't a question of we're doing this for posterity. The posterity was already with me, and I wondered what kind of father would he be proud of, even if I wasn't there. What should he come and read about me that would give him a sense of purpose and meaning? That I think that my activism now is for him.
When you're not in court for somebody, or if you have not been dragged to court, if you're not protesting, if you're not asking for some sort of accountability and all, what would you be doing? What do you do?
You know, it's
you watch
interesting.
TV, read.
I haven't watched TV in a long time. But you know what's interesting? When I was younger, I would say that I was an extrovert. But now I'm very much of an introvert. Like, just life has made me, I'm more introspective, I'm more retreated into myself. I don't go out as much. I do a lot of reading and staying in.
Okay.
Or taking walks. But I do love a long drive. I love driving for long trips. It's difficult in Ghana. You know,
Okay, I understand.
like out of the country, my biggest pride and joy is driving from
Road is free,
driving from Paris to Barcelona. I've done that with
That's about how many hours?
Oh, good. It's several days.
Yeah.
You know, my partner and I did stop on many places in the US or drive from.
Is she Ghanaian?
No, yeah, she is Ghanaian.
Oh, okay.
You know, so I love it. Like I loved that taking it, but it's also a very solitary life. Like, you know, if you're traveling with a loved one and you're just doing a long drive and stopping over in towns, I guess.
Let's talk about school. Where did you start? How did you continue? And
So-
now we know where you are, but
Yeah.
walk us through how you got there.
So sadly, my parents got separated before I was 1.
Oh,
Okay.
right.
And for the good or bad of the patriarchy of the times, my dad insisted that he was not going to let his first boy anywhere out of his sight. So my dad took me on, even though he didn't have the means to raise me. I was raised by my dad, for the most part, and which means that wherever he went, I went as well. You know, and I'm one of the very few people who, before I was 4 years old, I was in the boarding house.
Oh.
Because he needed to be able to take care of this thing. And so I was placed in a boarding house before I was 4, you know, until he moved town. I was taken out, and I think I was around 6 before he remarried.
Okay.
You know, so I lived
what
with him.
school is this in Ghana?
So my dad lived in Odumasi. We moved to Odumasi.
Okay.
Odumasi Krobo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I went to school there. He was working in land valuation. Then I attended Gideon International. Went to Krobo State, which is in Pong, for a while. Then we moved to Akuse.
Okay.
And yeah, I went to public school, Holy Family. Then went there throughout. And then I went to Akwamuman, which is in Akusumbo.
Okay.
You know, and then from there I left the country. I went to Morocco.
Okay.
I schooled in Morocco
For a father and the kind of work that he did, how did you find your way to Morocco?
No, so you see, when I was coming out of high school, I absolutely adored and wanted to go to Legon. Like, you know, it was the thing. I wanted to go to Legon. I wanted to be in Commonwealth. In those days, the university was the center of national politics. Student activism and student politics was it. I was very much drawn to it, right? But then when I got there, I left high school when I was 16, very early on, right? And there was a Moroccan government scholarship that I applied for and got. And I remember when my University of Ghana admission came, I was preparing to leave for Morocco. It was the hardest decision to make. But I always say that if I'd been given Commonwealth, I wouldn't have gone to Morocco.
Are you sure?
Yes. I so much wanted to be involved in that. If I did, I was like, yeah, I just like, so yeah, I went to Morocco on a scholarship.
When I was reading a bit about you, it looks as though you have a lot of degrees.
Yeah. This is what I was saying to you. That the markers of traditional society in terms of what it is to be successful, I was checking those boxes.
Yeah.
You know, and I like this stage of my life now. I like the stage where it wasn't about degrees, about the kind of work. It was about meaning. And a lot of us don't have meaning in terms of what we contribute to
society. But let me in some of the degrees. The law I know, but
there's meaning in them? No, I don't think so. I think that, you know, a person can have a purposeful life, which is value driven, and it has nothing to do with a degree.
Okay.
It is good to get an education. I love the fact that I can read and I can, you know, make sense of so much. But it is not a marker of whether or not a person would be the kind of leader that our society needs today. You know, there's so many young people I mobilize with, and a lot of them don't have more than a high school degree. These are people who are willing to give themselves off in the belief that this country can arise above its current station.
And they understand the vision you hold.
They understand what it means for a people to have dignity. You don't need more than that, I think.
So if you wake up in the morning, typical Monday morning, what is it like for you?
So I do now less than before, that I would wake up and try to do a run within my estate, and then just get up and get off to work. You know, now I'm very much go to the office, have a meeting with the lawyers, and have meetings and work. I'm sadly a workaholic. You know, I leave the office at 2 a.m. on most days. The day I was released from jail, I went straight to the office and worked in the office till I left there very late. So my life is work, you know, and that's what I'm saying. I keep telling you there's very little that is interesting about me. I have so much joy in the work that I do that I'm constantly itching to be in the office.
But before you became this workaholic, but I see a trend that you probably have been a workaholic all your life. Now it's manifesting.
The funny thing is that I didn't used to be when I was younger.
Okay.
Like when I was younger, I was just my dad's biggest frustration with me was I never studied. I absolutely never did. I didn't understand why anybody would sit down and read, like nothing. Like my dad and I couldn't have a conversation because he would get angry about this kid. And it was fine with me. I was doing extraordinarily well in school. The wake-up call for me is BC. So I was always top student, like everywhere I went, like fairly articulate. I read constantly. My head was always in novels. I would always read. But I would never like study in terms of what was material done in school. And you know, in those days you had to go to high school, you had to choose schools only in one certain region.
Yes.
If you didn't, it means you could miss out on school, right? Because the conference of headmasters met per region, right?
Now I
and they
feel
have
old.
a card. Yeah, they had a card that they moved around. You know what I mean? And during those days, my dad went to St. Peter's. He wanted that for me. I said no, I wasn't going to do that. In those days, Pope John's was the thing if you were in the Eastern region. So I said I chose Pope John's. I chose Okwapeman.
Okay.
In Okropon, I chose Akwaman then.
Okay.
And I remember because when I finished BC, I went to live with an uncle in Nungwa. And my mother came for me. It was the first time, you know, I'd seen her when she'd come to visit. But I went to live with her. And I was with her when my dad came. And he had a sullen face. And I didn't understand what it was, you know. And he said, yeah, my results was in. Okay. I mean, I didn't have anything. And you had aggregate 18.
And every man.
Like, for me, like, it felt like the ground should split open. And I should disappear in it.
So you understood what it meant?
I could have understood what it meant. Because, I mean, I didn't study, but I was always a stellar student. You know what I mean? So it wasn't in my portion, I felt like. But that changed. And that kicked me when I went into high school. And from there on, particularly when I went to Morocco, I was going to study law and French. I've never done French. And I studied French for 6 months and studied law. And I had to overcompensate. I had to be able to have all these books read, translate what I was reading into French and vice versa. And so the work ethic developed away from Ghana and just the need to survive in a different environment. I think that's where it came from. But never when I was young, no.
Well, I'm getting up close with Oliver, and let's go for a quick break. When we come back, he'll take us back to Morocco. We'll stay there a bit longer, and then he'll join me to play a little game which I think you would enjoy. So stay. Welcome back to Personality Profile on Joy News, and we've been talking to Oliver. Listen, if you just joined us, hopefully you've not missed that and a lot. But let's let him take us to Morocco. Let's go to Morocco. How long did you stay in Morocco?
I was in Morocco for 6 years.
Okay, 6 years.
Yeah, this is a while.
Was it a straight 6 years, or
it was a straight 6 years?
Okay.
So the funny thing was when I arrived in Morocco, I mean, of course, it was my first experience in a society where my blackness was revealed to me, right? Like, yeah, we were black, you know, all the derogatory Arab terms for what it meant to be black there. And it's surprising there was a lot of African students there. You know, Morocco has this, you know, all Moroccan public universities are free. There was nothing anybody paid. So there's a lot of people from various Francophone countries that studied there. For Ghana, it started quite late though. Now it's been consistent. Yeah. When Kufuor came into office, then they struck up a relationship with Morocco. The first Ghana embassy was opened. The first ambassador then was Kofi Annan's brother, Kofi Annan. Oh. And then students were sent by Ghana to go study there. And it's interesting because the first group of students that we sent there were all children of politicians. Yeah. Alan Tremartin had a niece there. Richard Anani, Minister of Health. His son, Richard, was there. Everybody else was connected to Aliyu Mahama. Just like one person that I knew.
How did you get in there?
So that was the first group. The second group, we started to liberalize a bit. Okay. That was the third year group of students that ended up in Morocco. Okay. And I was drawn to Morocco because, I mean, at the time I was also very much interested in, you know, the Israeli-Arab conflict. You know, I wanted to understand it, and I thought, you know, getting close and even with some proximity. And I was also drawn in by the fact that Morocco spoke Arabic, spoke French, and spoke Spanish.
Did you find anything interesting about the Israeli-Arab conflict?
I don't know. It seemed to me at the time, for somebody who was interested in international relations, that it dominated the conversation of a certain age. I think when, you know, Bill Clinton was there in the Camp David Accords and things like that, I was interested in understanding a conflict that wasn't available in Ghanaian schools, right? Like we had little knowledge of it. you can go through Ghanaian curriculum and hear nothing about the Holocaust, right? We don't know anything about.
Yes.
Our educational experiences wasn't very open like that. So yeah, I was intellectually curious in that regard coming out of high school. But yeah, I wanted to.
And the food, there was no form of culture shock or anything for
you?
you?
There was a lot of culture shock. You know, like the depression of racism was a big one, right? The food was incomprehensible. The bread was like, what is this? You know, but yeah, with time you come to enjoy it. It's like these little pleasures that even when I was living in New York, like, yeah, I would go to a Moroccan restaurant because I miss it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when I went to Morocco, I used to constantly say that it was the wrong step in the right direction.
Okay.
You know, like it was a miracle of divine contradictions. Like so much about it that I couldn't. You know what I mean? And I wanted to leave, but I ended up staying 6 years and did my master's there. And you know what is interesting? When I went to Harvard, at the orientation, some members of faculty came to look for me because they were interested in my profile. They had never had a student who had studied in Morocco come
a
to Harvard
Ghanaian
Law.
study in Morocco?
No, just any student who had attended Harvard Law School who had schooled in Morocco.
Okay.
And they came to look for me on the day of orientation. That's how much my application must have made an impression on them. So yeah, you never know, right? Like,
let's stay in Harvard a bit.
Yeah.
What's the most memorable time in Harvard for you, good or bad?
you know what's funny? I always used to say that
Did you lead any protests in
my
Harvard?
entire educational experiences in Harvard was protesting. That I didn't. But you see, the funny thing is, I had never been to a protest in Ghana or in any other country I'd lived in. It was in Harvard that I discovered protests, almost by accident. Because I went to Harvard at the time when Fees Must Fall was happening in South Africa. You know? And myself and another South African students were thinking about how do we express solidarity to South African students who were protesting. That we decided to create a protest at Harvard Law School that took on Harvard itself about, you know, diversity, about the curriculum itself, about critical legal education, things that were born out of this. So that's when I discovered the power of protest in America.
Did they affect your education in any way?
Absolutely not. Like I was elected, I was appointed. I mean, a committee was set up at the highest level. I was appointed to it. Like there was an understanding. I think there's a sociocultural understanding of the value of protest in those spaces.
So did you get any form of culture shock when you returned back home in Ghana, attempted a protest?
You know what's funny?
Yeah.
When I was leaving Ghana, because I'd come back to Ghana, I'd worked for quite a bit. I worked in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and then left for Harvard, and was coming back. I was clear when I was leaving that there was no way I was coming back to this country. I'd fallen out of love with the country.
Wow.
You know, particularly after the Constitution review, I was giddy and excited. I was a 22-year-old, the youngest in the commission, that I felt that we were doing something. I could literally see Ghana change in my hands. And then when the politics took over, when we finished the Constitution Review Commission, and I was so heartbroken. And then when I was at the, what's the name? Foreign Affairs, I was seconded to the presidency. And I saw up close that these people have no clue. Like, I wanted to believe that the people highest up had the best intentions. I didn't see evidence of it. And so when I left for Harvard, it was clear to me that I knew I was not going to come back. You know, I just didn't see the kind of leadership I thought.
When was the last time you took that document, the Constitutional Review? When was the last time you revisited that document?
I read it every day.
You do?
I do look at it over the time. Like, because in many ways as well, our advocacy now is focused on a demand for a new constitution for a new generation. That so much of it informs, the experience also informs my view that this country can get better.
Oliver, do you think that if we change the constitution really, and we had the same set of people, and we had the same set of mindsets, it will be good enough?
So
will it not amount to another review?
That a constitution must anticipate and know its people. It must be made to check their worst impulses. The constitution must be made in the understanding that bad people rule this country, or somebody's a cruise control Accra. It must be made with that understanding that we must see it as a creative project to anticipate that, and we must design it for a people who there's no other way to deal with. We must open up avenues for people so that we don't rely on institutions, for instance.
Okay.
If people could mobilize, right, and take on Cecilia Dapa and they do not wait on an attorney general to prosecute them, the constitution must make way for it. How do we bring back the people into the process of governance? So that, because when you create institutions, our politics has understood that you can co-opt them. You can state capture. That's what has happened. You appoint party cronies to these institutions. They don't do anything. But if you have a mechanism by which the people can directly check whether you elect people, you can have recall elections by signing a number of petitions.
Right.
We have to purposefully design the document in a way that understands that we are bad people. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
So, and I one of the things as an activist I ask myself is this a constitution that is a friend of an activist? It is not.
That's not.
So we have to create a system that enables the better angels of ourselves to check.
Would you say that
demons of our
generally
society.
activism is, by its original nature, going against the law? If you look at the nature of activism, would it then mean that, would you put a meaning to it that it is ordinarily going against law, or there could be activism that can be within law?
I think that the nature of law itself means that it lends itself to easy corruption by elites and those in power. That they can easily design for themselves a law that is protective of them. And sometimes it happens in an insidious way that we don't realize it. For instance, what does the right to own property mean to a person who doesn't have property? It is protective of the property that those who have taken property should keep it. So that if I am hungry, the law provides me no protection to be fed. So that if I took your food and ate, I have violated the law. Right? So it is protective of property. In so many ways, our laws are constantly designed to preserve the status quo. That if it is a reform of the status quo that you're looking for, that you are always going to be, and more likely than not, in conflict with the law.
Right.
And it might come through advocacy that demands legal reform. There's so much of this. Civil societies are always engaged in the business that we need a new law on this, we need to reform, change the law on that, and things like that. So, by its very nature, because law exists to protect the status quo, a reform of the status quo demands law to change constantly. Now, as an activist, you're put in an instance where those who control the mechanisms of law, those who wield power to selectively apply law even when it's against their favor, make it such that you are always in conflict with them.
Yeah.
That you are always a pariah. You are the one whose very existence and advocacy and things you do, your way of life, is threatening to their bottom line and the life they preserve for themselves. Right? So that invariably you end up in that situation, I think.
Do you have any favorite food at all?
I'm a typical Lewe boy. I grew up in a situation whereby we can have banku for
the entire
morning, afternoon, evening. That I am inflicted by the culinary traditions of my people. But yes, I do still enjoy good akbla.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And if
but
you
also,
did,
the pandemic also drove me to. I love to cook. The fact that I lived on my own for so long and I've always lived from 16, mean that I was always experimenting.
would you love to cook?
So I do a lot of a host of things. I do chicken yassa, which is one of my favorites as well. Like different meals I can try my hands on. My baking is still terrible, but I'm always trying at it.
But what about the local dishes? Are you able to cook them?
I can make them, but it's not. It seems it is not challenging in any regard, right? Like I want to be able to look up a recipe and try to make it. And I love cooking with somebody as well. Like there's no better date you can go on than to go to a place and cook together, right? Like there's a beauty of that process that I enjoy.
And don't crucify me. It's really hard to find him. Otherwise, I would have gotten him to make us something.
I would have loved to have this conversation in the kitchen.
See, I'm sure I get him to cook us a meal at some point.
Yeah. So yeah.
Would you like to drink to wake you up, to kick you, coffee or tea?
I would do more tea than coffee.
Why?
I'm still learning the coffee ways.
For a reader.
So you see, the funny thing is that I still have palpitation when I take coffee.
Oh,
so I've not been
your
able
heart
to
is
get
always
it.
racing. By the way, you don't need coffee. What would you?
Yeah. So
that is hard to ask the next question.
I do love a glass of wine. I don't mind.
Okay.
Wine, you know.
Okay.
But you know what is nicer?
What?
Sparkling water. My goodness, like I die for it. Like when it hits.
How did we move from wine to sparkling
water? I'm telling you, like I talk like it's a pensioner, like sparkling water.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so at least we have an idea that you like wine. Would it be sweet or?
No, a Merlot. A Merlot is
okay.
fine. Cabernet Sauvignon.
Okay.
It's
okay.
fine.
But if you had to dare, would you dare cognac or whiskey? Which one would you dare?
Courtesy of some of my friends, I've been doing more whiskey now.
Okay.
I think so. Perhaps I I would be thinking whiskey, I think.
Okay. Okay. So
But
this.
you can't go wrong with sparkling water, I tell you. So if anybody's thinking of giving me a gift, sparkling water would do
Okay.
it.
So I will bring sparkling water, and then you make me. What would you make me?
You
Chicken
pick.
what? What did you
Let's
say?
do pho.
What is
Vietnamese
that?
pho. Like it's noodles. With,
Oliver, I have a very narrow and very
but we have to
simple palate.
expand it. We have to expand. We have to challenge
The
your
palate.
gastronomy. Like we have to, because there's no best compliment. You know what my favorite dessert is?
What?
To give you tea roll. After you have to try it. And
After your
stretch.
middle meal.
You have to stretch the elasticity of one stomach.
Okay, so these are not toffees or cookies or anything. So I just adopted my grandmother's style of emptying the cookie bowl, and then we'll put in some needles and threads. But I put in some questions here for Oliver, and then would allow him to pick. He'd be answering about, depending on my mood, on how he answers the first or the second. We shall have him do about 4 or 5, but don't be afraid.
Okay.
It's quite simple. Let's start.
Okay.
So because, no, I want to read it myself.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank
okay.
you. Let's see. Oh, for somebody who loves to cook, I love this question. So it says that if you were a flavor, what flavor would you be and why?
Banana bread.
Oh my
I don't know why.
Banana bread.
Oh, I don't.
But the thing is in the banana, when you're putting it
okay,
in.
first of all, I love sponge cakes generally. So I'm not
Okay.
I won't do a lot of ice cream cakes. No.
Okay.
I do something chewy for some reason.
Okay.
And yeah, banana bread, like, yeah, I guess perhaps it's one of those things like, because when I was experimenting to know how to cook, my partner was as well.
Okay.
And she figured out how to make banana bread. And
Okay.
so I always swore by it.
But
and
what
I
kind of
loved it.
flavoring did you
But
put
I
in
like-
the banana bread? Which one would you?
No, put no flavoring. Like you
Because
can have
banana is enough.
But you can have banana bread, and then you can have a bit of blueberry, you know, on it, and then it's a bit of ice cream, and you're good to go. Like, yeah.
And this partner is Ghanaian?
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
Okay, another one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's see. Maybe the next ones I'd have you read them yourself. Okay. What's one habit you've tried to break out but can't quite shake off? You have to be honest. You have to be honest.
A late night snack. Like, I'm telling you.
Maybe
Like,
because you're always staying late to read
that's the
or
thing
something.
as well. I don't know.
I hear when
Like,
the brain works or functions properly.
Like I do. I host a on Monday evening a Twitter reading space.
Okay.
You know, and we read a book and we discuss it.
Okay.
And it can go late and best against my better judgment. I've tried, I can't break out of it. Like I'm trying to avoid the kitchen as much as I can. And I end up in there anyway. Right?
What would you ordinarily have at the time?
Anything I can find in the fridge and devour at the time I would do. So it's better for me to have like plantain chips or anything. But if I can't find it and it's kinky in there, I would want me to
Oh
eat.
my goodness.
That's how bad it is, I must say.
This one you can read out yourself.
Okay. I would lie if I don't like the question.
I trust
lie.
you completely.
What's a goal on your bucket list that you hope to accomplish soon? Wow, this is interesting. Goal that I would love to accomplish soon. Travel somewhere.
You have traveled from Paris
I
to
do,
Barcelona
and that's
already.
the thing as
Or
well.
something else. In that bucket cannot be the same.
I am unfortunately very frugal. So, like, even if we're flying somewhere, right? While my partner would prefer to fly first class, I would do economy. It's like, fine. I would book the cheapest place.
Right. Why?
And one of her dreams is to do like a first class trip on a long flight to like Australia.
Okay.
And I would love that for her.
Okay.
So I'd love to give her that and do that.
And then
with
you
her.
be.
I'll do that with her. So I'll
Okay.
do that with her,
Okay.
but
Okay. Please
yeah.
let us know how that will go.
yeah, that would be something I would love to do.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. We got him to tell us something in his bucket list. Right. Next one.
Yeah. I do travel a lot, but just the experience of giving somebody that, I think. I'd love
People say that air travel is the worst form of travel, and yet they say it's the safest.
that. Yeah. Yes, it is, isn't it?
It is.
Like you're traveling in this too. You know what's funny? I always tell people I have like I'm not afraid of flying, but for some reason, every time I'm stepping on the plane, I feel like, man, this thing is going to crash. But
you feel the same if you're traveling from here to Akute?
not by the road, no. But the funny thing is that I've always imagined that I was the sole survivor in any plane crash. It's the most absurd and like unreasonable thing, but I kind of believe it. What is the most unexpected compliment you've ever received? So when I was recently arrested, somebody sent me a note. Okay, they sent me Long Walk to Freedom, Mandela's book, and they wrote the notes in the pages of them, and the person was talking about my leadership. It's somebody who works for me, and talked about one of the things that they absolutely admire about me. It's I'm the kind of leader that inspires loyalty, and I've never thought of myself that way.
Okay.
You know, and yeah, it was humbling. It was humbling to read. I think that would be.
I get the sense that you read a lot each time you're behind.
I do a lot of reading.
You
yes.
do.
It's
It
my
keeps
little
you sane.
vacation.
I guess so. Yeah, you go.
Yeah. Oh, I've picked 2.
We'll keep on. Hold on to that.
I've set myself up. haven't I?
Yes. I'll spare you the rest.
Who was your childhood celebrity crush?
Oh, it's my favorite question, and I'm glad you picked
childhood
it.
celebrity crush, and you still have a crush on them. Yeah, I did have a childhood celebrity crush. Do I still have a crush on her? Now she's married to, I think it's called Swiss Bits or something. That was his name. Yeah.
Okay.
And you know what's funny? It was always in every relationship. She was always my, like, you know how you give yourself passes, like celebrity a pass, and that if she ever came.
Okay.
And when I was dating a Kenyan girl at the time, Fiona, and our song was No One, No One, No One. You know that song?
Yeah.
Can never get in the way of how I feel for you.
No one, no one, no one.
And she sang it.
Hey, Oliver.
So if you know who sang the song, you know who my celebrity crush is. Now I'm giving you homework.
Who's this? We'll find it. We'll definitely find it. I probably will play the song on the show for you. Finally, you have the last one with you. No, that's not Alicia. That's Alicia Keys. Alicia Keys, definitely.
Yes.
Oh, you've got some taste.
But you know what? Like, even now, I think I would date. My friends always say that I look like somebody who would date Lupita Nyong'o. And I think that she's kind of my vibe as
you
well.
can?
In many ways.
Okay, why?
I don't know. Lupita kind of feels like
she's authentic.
She's very authentic, I think.
Yeah.
What's a pet peeve that drives you crazy about others? But what's a pet peeve that drives me crazy?
Yes.
But others find funny.
Yes.
I'll tell you what about me that I love, but others hate.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I have the worst voice, but I love to sing.
Like me.
Like I know a lot of songs.
At least you're not alone.
Like even just now, I've broken into some song with my terrible voice as it is, right?
And like you recruited me to joining you.
I know. People hate it about me. I call it cantata myself. You would say one word, and I would sing it because I know a lot of song lyrics as well. Anything you say reminds me of a song. Then I'll just be talking to you and I'll break up into a song as well.
Smart.
So that's my thing, and people hate it about me.
That's very smart. And so there's nobody in Ghana here that you would crush on at least?
In Ghana that I crush on?
Yes, that you've crushed on, or you're planning to crush on, or you just might crush on?
No, I like Sister Debbie. Actually, I like her politics. I like her progressive politics. I like that she makes music that I don't understand. I like that. I like everything which is eclectic and doesn't make sense.
Okay.
So yeah, I do crush on Sister Debbie in many ways. You know.
Thank you for answering all of my questions.
And I love One Love as well. I love eclectic people. I like people who do things that get me to reflect, I think.
That's a man who's got some wide variety. Lupita, very brown skin. Debbie, quite light skin.
No, but when it comes to I'm more driven to people's personality than I've dated people like, yeah, there has to be something
That.
that I connect with.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
How
are you?
There's actually been only one person who I saw, and I said, this person is absolutely beautiful. I wanted to date.
Who's this?
And we both know the person. Actually, we're mutual friends. That the first time I saw her, I was like, this girl is absolutely pretty. I remember where I saw her. I was at Legon. I was doing law school in Legon, and it was at night market. You know, and then when I saw her for the first time, I was like this.
But
so this is the first time. It was the first time that I hadn't engaged with a person, and yeah.
But for the fact that I have to be professional and she will kill me because she'll be right at my gate, I will say her name. But I think I understand why. She's quite a beautiful person, very beautiful personality. But anyway, before I let you go, finally, how are your court cases coming up?
I don't know, to be honest. Like, I feel like I'm the one person who don't understand what is happening. I mean, I'm just there, whenever the government is ready, I think. But yeah, I mean, for me, I understood what the purpose of, or understand what the purpose of this prosecution and court cases are, is to disarticulate activism, to slow us down and things like that, and having given them that joy. And that for me is the meaning of my life.
Have you heard this rumor about people saying that Oliver is driven by a thing called a Messiah syndrome? Have you heard it before?
I'll tell you what I'm driven by: insanity. Because Thomas Sankara said that to actually believe that you can change the world, you must be a little insane. It is insanity to neglect the comforts of life to do what we're doing. It's completely ludicrous, you know, for me to pursue a path of this path that gives me no peace, that I'm constantly having to move around and live in different places and change my address ever so often. I'm driven by insanity. So tell them that he's mad.
It will take me back to the emperor who ruled Rome some years ago that said that he was quite insane.
Yes.
But that's quite strange.
Yeah, it's nothing to lose it has to be insanity. I'm completely mad. So tell them I'm mad.
Do you like any of the past historic figures politically?
In Ghana?
In Ghana, of course.
We have to pick and choose them.
I see you talk about Nkrumah a lot.
I do talk about Nkrumah quite a lot.
Is this to suggest you like him?
I do like Nkrumah. I like a bit of Nkrumah. I like the intellectualism of Nkrumah. I know of Buzia as well.
Okay.
Buzia was a weak leader. I admire nothing about his leadership. But the fact that he's an academic, I'm academic driven. So I like that as well about him. I like Rawlings for his courage as well. And sadly, most of the people that I admire, are stuck in the past, unfortunately.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
We need to build a future that resembles.
And we look forward to the future.
A future that resembles our past.
Oh, that's a nice way to describe it. Thank you for talking to me.
I appreciate it.
We have a second one that we're going to have in the kitchen.
Okay.
And thank you for honoring the invitation.
I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Personality Profile on Joy News. And I hope that you had some fun and also learned a thing or two from Oliver. We definitely will bring you another installment.